I am the Alpha and the Omega, the first and the last. Come.
Was I dead, or did I see the living God?
Write what you see, for I will show you what must soon take place.
Beasts crawling up out of the sea, stars dropping from the sky, and a dragon with 7 heads, a city made of gold, and 4 riders charging across the earth carrying war, hunger, and ruin behind them. This is not a nightmare. It is the last book of the Bible, and every strange and terrifying word of it was written down by one man who saw the end of the world with his own eyes. His name was John. He was old, alone, and abandoned on a tiny island in the middle of the sea, left there by powerful men who wanted his voice silenced for good. But on that island, the sky tore open above him. John watched the throne of God blaze with lightning. He saw a lamb take hold of a sealed scroll that held the fate of all mankind. One by one, the seals were broken, and the world began to come apart. Trumpets sounded. Bowls of fire were poured out. A great evil rose up and forced its mark onto every hand and every forehead, while a wicked city grew fat and proud on the suffering of the innocent. Then the heavens split wide. A rider on a white horse came thundering down, and the final battle for everything began. This is the story of how the world ends, and what rises out of the ashes when it does. It is a story of monsters and kings, of judgment and fire, of a war that stretches from heaven all the way down to the earth. But hidden underneath all the terror is a promise that no matter how dark things become, evil does not get the last word. John was one of the 12 men who had walked beside Jesus all those years ago. They had shared meals together. Many evenings he had sat and listened to Jesus teach, soaking up every word. On the worst night of his life, he had stood near the cross, watching his closest friend be taken from him. And 3 days later, he had been one of the first to see the empty tomb with his own eyes. All of that had happened a long time ago now. Many, many years had passed since those days. Most of the other men who had followed Jesus were no longer alive. Some of them had given their lives for what they believed. Out of that whole group, John was one of the last ones left, an old man carrying a lifetime of memories. Even in his old age, he never stopped telling people about Jesus, and that is exactly what got him into trouble. The rulers of that time did not like this new faith spreading quietly through their towns and cities. They wanted it stamped out before it could grow any larger. And so they came for John. They arrested him and they sent him far away to a small, rocky island out in the middle of the sea. The island was called Patmos. It was a place of punishment, the kind of place where a person was sent to be silenced and forgotten. An old man, alone on a bare and wind-swept island. No family nearby, no friends to talk to. Nothing around him but the wind, the crashing waves, and the empty sky overhead. The people who put him there were certain they had shut him up for good. In their minds, his voice would simply fade away out on those rocks, where no one would ever hear from him again. They could not have been more wrong, because it was there, on that lonely island, on what seemed like an ordinary day, everything changed. John later wrote that he had been deep in prayer, his heart lifted up to God. Then, all at once, from somewhere behind him, came a voice. It was loud, louder than anything he had ever heard in his whole life. Ringing out like a trumpet, sharp and clear, it seemed to shake the very air around him. "Write down what you are about to see," the voice said. Slowly, John turned around to find out who was speaking. And what stood before him was so overwhelming that his legs gave way and he dropped to the ground as though all the life had gone out of him. When John turned, his eyes fell on a row of golden lampstands. 7 of them stood in a circle, glowing warmly in the dark, and walking among them was a figure unlike anything he had ever laid eyes on. At first glance, it looked like a man, yet it was so much more than a man. A long robe flowed down to his feet, with a band of gold stretched across his chest. His hair was white, white as fresh snow, white as soft wool. But it was the eyes that John could never forget. They were not soft and gentle. Instead, they blazed like fire, as though they could see straight through a person, all the way down into the deepest corners of the heart. Below the robe, his feet shone like metal pulled fresh from a furnace, glowing as if they just came out of the flames. When he spoke again, his voice rolled out like the sound of rushing water that seemed to fill the whole sky. Held in his right hand were 7 shining stars. From his mouth came a sharp sword. His face blazed so brightly that John could hardly bear to look at it. It was like staring straight into the noonday sun. There was no standing up for John. The sight was simply too much for him. Down he went, crumpling to the ground, lying there trembling, certain that this was the moment his life would end. Then something gentle happened. The great figure reached down and rested his right hand on John's shoulder, and the voice that a moment ago had boomed like thunder now grew soft and kind. "Do not be afraid," he said. "I am the first and the last. Once I was gone from this world, taken in death, but look at me now, alive forever and ever. The keys to death itself are in my hand." In that instant, everything clicked into place. This was Jesus, the very same Jesus John had walked beside all those years before, the same dear friend he had watched suffer on the cross. Yet here he stood, glorious and blazing, full of power, alive beyond the reach of the grave. The man John had once shared simple meals with now stood before him as the king over all creation. And this was only the beginning of what John would be shown. But before the great visions could unfold, Jesus had something he wanted delivered first. Messages, 7 of them, 1 for each of 7 churches, 7 little groups of believers scattered across the land. Every single word would be aimed straight at their hearts. Those 7 lampstands John had seen each stood for a church, a real group of people living in a real town, doing their best to follow God in a hard and dangerous world. To every one of them, Jesus had a personal message. For some of them, the words were warm and full of encouragement. For others, the words landed like a splash of cold water, meant to wake them up before it was too late. Turning first to one church, he spoke with both praise and sorrow. "I know how hard you have worked," he told them. "I know you have refused to give up, but somewhere along the way, you let go of the love you had for me at the very start. Remember how things used to be. Come back to that first love." Another church was suffering terribly, and to them he offered no correction at all, only comfort. "I know you are poor," he said gently. "I know people are hurting you. Yet in heaven you are richer than you could ever imagine. Stay faithful, whatever it may cost you, and I will give you a crown that never fades away." Not every message was so soft, though. There was one church that looked alive from the outside, busy, respected, full of activity day after day. And yet on the inside, its faith had quietly faded. To them, the words were blunt. Everyone thinks you are alive, but the truth is that you are not. Wake up before what little is left slips away. And then there was the church that received his sharpest words of all. These people were neither cold nor on fire for God. Lukewarm is what they were, sitting comfortably in the middle, pleased with themselves, sure they had everything they could possibly need. But Jesus held up a mirror they did not want to look into. "You say you are rich and need nothing," he told them. "Yet you cannot see how poor and blind and empty you really are." Even so, he did not slam the door on them. Instead, he offered one of the most tender pictures in the whole book. "Look," he said, "I am standing at the door and I am knocking. If anyone hears my voice and opens that door, I will come inside, and the two of us will sit down and share a meal together like old friends." That was the heart of all 7 letters. However hard the words, the invitation underneath them never changed. Turn back, open the door, come home. But those letters were only the doorway. Once the last word was written down, the real visions began to roll in. And what came next would lift John clean out of the world he had always known. With the letters finished, John lifted his eyes, and the sight ahead of him stole the breath from his chest. A door, an open door, standing wide in the middle of the sky. That same trumpet voice called out to him once more. "Come up here," it said. "I will show you what must happen after this." In a single instant, the lonely island fell away. His spirit was lifted up and carried straight through that open door into a place no living person had ever set foot. Heaven itself surrounded him now. And there, at the very center of everything, stood a throne. Seated upon it was someone. John could not describe a face or a shape. The glory pouring off him was far too bright for that. All he could speak of was the light. The one on the throne shone like precious jewels, gleaming and beautiful beyond words. Curving all the way around the throne was a rainbow, glowing like a deep green emerald, soft and full of color. Out from the throne came flashes of lightning and long rolls of thunder, and the air itself seemed to crackle with power. Just in front of it, 7 torches burned with bright flame. Spread out before the throne lay a great sea, but a sea unlike any on earth. Smooth as glass and clear as crystal, it lay perfectly still, like a floor made of frozen light. Encircling the great throne were 24 smaller thrones, and on each one sat an elder dressed in white, a golden crown resting on his head. Closer still were 4 strange living creatures, each one covered all over with eyes, and each one different from the rest. Day and night, never once stopping to rest, these creatures called out together, "Holy, holy, holy is the Lord God Almighty, who was and is to come." Every time that cry rang out, the 24 elders lowered themselves to the floor. One by one, they lifted the golden crowns from their own heads and laid them down at the foot of the throne. Without saying it in words, they were declaring something simple and true, that nothing they held was truly theirs, and that all of it belonged to the one seated there. John simply stood and took it all in. The lightning, the singing, the endless waves of worship. This was the throne room at the very center of the entire universe. And right there, something was about to begin that would set the whole future of the world into motion. Something caught John's eye in the right hand of the one seated on the throne. It was a scroll, a rolled-up book. But this was no ordinary scroll. It had been sealed shut, locked tight with 7 seals, so that no one could open it or read a single word of what lay inside. Then a mighty angel lifted his voice and called out across all of heaven, "Who is worthy to break these seals and open this scroll?" Silence followed. Nobody came forward. Not one of the elders rose from his throne. Not a single angel stepped out of the crowd. In all of heaven, across the whole earth and even beneath it, no one could be found who was good enough or strong enough to open it. At that, John began to weep. The tears came hard because it seemed the scroll, and whatever hope and future were sealed inside it, might stay locked away forever. No hand could open it. No one was worthy of the task. Gently, one of the elders touched his shoulder. "Do not cry," he said. "Look closely. The Lion of Judah has won the victory. He is the one who is able to open the scroll." Lifting his eyes, John fully expected to see a great and roaring lion. But that was not the sight that met him. Standing there in the middle of the throne was a lamb. And this lamb looked as though it had been through something terrible. The marks of deep wounds were still there on its body. Yet despite those marks, it stood upright and alive. This was Jesus. He had been the lamb laid down as a sacrifice, the one who had given his life. But the grave had not been able to hold him. He had risen, and now he alone was found worthy. Stepping forward, the Lamb reached out and took the scroll from the hand of the one on the throne. The very moment his fingers closed around it, all of heaven erupted. The 4 creatures and the 24 elders bowed low before the Lamb. Then thousands upon thousands of angels joined the sound, far too many to ever count, until at last every living thing in heaven, on the earth, and in the sea lifted up its voice together in one enormous roar of praise. The Lamb, who had been wounded and given up, was the only one worthy to unlock the future. And now, one seal at a time, he was about to open it wide. The Lamb broke open the first seal. At once, John heard one of the living creatures call out, its voice booming like thunder. Forward galloped a white horse. Its rider gripped a bow and wore a crown, riding out like a conqueror set on winning battle after battle. Next, the Lamb broke the second seal. Out came a second horse, this one red, the color of fire. To its rider was given a great sword, along with the power to strip peace away from the earth, so that people would turn against one another and bring harm wherever they went. Then came the third seal, a third creature called Come. And out rode a black horse. Its rider held a pair of scales, the kind used to weigh out food, and a voice rang out about the price of wheat and barley, prices so steep that a man might work an entire day just to buy enough bread to make it through. This was hunger. This was famine, spreading slowly across the land. After that, the Lamb broke the fourth seal. The fourth creature called, Come! The last horse came out, and this one wore a sickly pale shade, the gray-green color of something with no life left in it. Its rider carried a name. He was called Death, and close behind him followed the grave itself. Together the two of them were handed power over a great part of the earth, to take life away through the sword, through famine. These were the 4 riders, sweeping out across the world. Soon after, the Lamb broke open the 5th seal. What John saw next caught him by surprise. Beneath the altar were the souls of people who had lost their lives because they would not let go of their faith in God. Out they cried, "How long, Lord? How long until you set everything right?" To each of them was given a white robe, along with a word to rest a little while longer. Then the sixth seal was broken, and the whole world seemed to shudder. A mighty earthquake rolled across the land. The sun went black, the moon turned the deep red, stars fell from the sky like ripe figs shaken loose from a tree. And everyone alike, kings, generals, the wealthy, the lowly, every person without exception, ran for the caves and hid, crying out for the mountains to fall on them and bury them away. The great day of God's anger had arrived, and not a soul could stand against it. 6 seals lay broken now. But before the 7th, there came a quiet pause. And in that pause, John was shown something beautiful. Before things could go any further, John caught sight of 4 angels standing at the 4 corners of the earth. In their hands, they held back the winds, keeping them from blowing so that for a moment a deep stillness settled over everything. Then up rose another angel, carrying the seal of the living God. Out across the heavens, he called to the 4 angels who had the power to bring harm. "Wait. Do not touch the land or the sea just yet, not until we have marked the servants of our God upon their foreheads." These were people who belonged to God. Before another wave of trouble could fall, he made certain they were marked, claimed, and kept safe as his very own. A vast number of them were sealed in this way. God had not forgotten his people in the middle of all the chaos. Their safety came first. Looking again, John saw something greater still. A crowd had gathered, not an ordinary crowd, but one so enormous that no person could ever hope to count it. They came from every nation, every tribe, and every language on earth, all standing together before the throne and before the Lamb. Dressed in white robes with palm branches waving in their hands, they shouted out as one, "Salvation belongs to our God and to the Lamb." John had no idea who all these people were. Seeing this, one of the elders turned to him with a question. "These ones dressed in white, do you know who they are or where they have come from?" John admitted that he did not. So the elder explained it to him. "These are the ones who came through the great suffering. No matter the cost, they held tightly to their faith. They washed their robes and made them white. That is the reason they now stand before the throne." Then the elder shared a promise about them, one of the most comforting lines in all of Scripture. "Never again would they go hungry," he said, "and never again would they thirst. No longer would the sun beat down and scorch them. The Lamb himself would be their shepherd, leading them to springs of living water, and God would reach out and wipe away every last tear from their eyes." After all the horses and all the terror, John was being shown the other half of the story. The suffering had been real and painful, but for those who held on, a home was waiting, a place where the crying would finally come to an end. At last, the 7th seal was opened, and for the space of about half an hour, all of heaven fell completely silent. When that strange, heavy silence had passed, John watched as 7 angels stepped forward, and into the hand of each one was placed a trumpet. These were not trumpets meant for music. They were trumpets of warning. One after another, the angels lifted them to their lips. The first angel sounded his trumpet. Down came hail and fire, pouring over the earth. 1/3 of all the trees were burned away, and every blade of green grass was scorched. The second angel sounded his trumpet. Something like an enormous burning mountain was hurled into the sea. 1/3 of the creatures living in them perished, and 1/3 of the ships were ruined. The third angel sounded his trumpet. A great blazing star dropped from the sky, falling on the rivers and the springs of fresh water. The star carried a name. It was called Bitterness, and the waters it touched turned bitter, so bitter that those who drank them could not survive. The fourth angel sounded his trumpet. Up in the heavens, the lights themselves were struck. 1/3 of the sun went dim, along with 1/3 of the moon and 1/3 of the stars. The days grew darker, and the nights darker still than anyone had ever known. High overhead, John then saw an eagle soaring across the sky, crying out a warning to everyone still left on the earth. Trouble, trouble, trouble is on its way, because 3 more trumpets are about to sound, and they will be worse than everything before them. Each trumpet was like God knocking, a little louder each time, offering the world one more chance to wake up, to turn back, to change its ways. Terrible as the disasters were, notice that each one struck only 1/3, not everything, not yet. There was still room left. There was still time left. The door stood open, just a crack for anyone willing to turn around. Yet the world by and large would not, and the trumpet still to come would prove the most dreadful of all. The fifth angel sounded his trumpet. John watched as a star fell from the sky down to the earth, and to this star was handed a key. It was the key to a deep, dark pit, a bottomless shaft sinking far down into the depths. When the pit was unlocked, smoke came pouring up out of it like the smoke of a giant furnace. There was so much of it that the sun itself grew dim and the whole sky was clouded over. And out of that rolling smoke came a swarm. At first they looked something like locusts, yet they were like no insect anyone had ever seen. Their faces resembled the faces of men. Their hair was long like the hair of women. Their teeth were sharp like the teeth of lions, and their tails carried a sting like a scorpion's. Crowns that looked like gold sat upon their heads, and the beating of their wings roared like an army of horses thundering into battle. Over them ruled a king, the angel of the bottomless pit, whose name means the destroyer. But strict orders were given to this swarm. The grass was not to be touched, nor the trees, nor anything green and growing. Their only target was the people who did not carry God's mark upon their foreheads. And even then, they were not allowed to take anyone's life, only to bring terrible pain, with a sting so sharp that people would long for their suffering to end and find no relief from it. That was the fifth trumpet. As horrifying as it was, it stood as only the first of 3 final warnings. Then the sixth angel sounded his trumpet. 4 angels who had been bound at a great river were suddenly set loose, having been kept ready for this very hour. Behind them rode an army so vast that John was even told the number, 200 million horsemen. Fire and smoke poured from the mouths of their horses, and a great part of the world was swept away before them. Here lies the saddest part of the whole chapter. After all of it, after the swarm, after the army, after such great loss, the people who remained still would not change. Turning away from their evil was the one thing they refused to do. On they went, bowing to things made of gold and silver and stone, lifeless things that could not see or hear or move a step. On they went with their lying, their stealing, and the harm they did to one another. The warnings had come, louder and louder each time, yet the world clung tightly to its sin, refusing to loosen its grip. Down from heaven came a mighty angel, wrapped in a cloud, with a rainbow arching over his head. His face shone like the sun, and his legs stood like two pillars of fire. So enormous was he that one foot rested on the sea and the other on the dry land. Held open in his hand was a little scroll. A great shout broke from his mouth, loud as the roar of a lion. As he shouted, 7 thunders answered with words of their own. John lifted his pen, ready to write down everything they said, but a voice from heaven stopped him short. "Seal up what the thunders spoke," it told him. "Do not write it down." It seemed there were some secrets that even John was not permitted to pass along. Then the angel told John to come and take the little scroll out of his hand and eat it. Stepping forward, John did exactly that, and just as the angel had warned, the taste in his mouth was sweet as honey. But once he swallowed it down, his stomach turned bitter and sour. That little scroll was God's own message, and that is just how God's message can be. Sweet because it is true and good and full of hope. Bitter because it also carries hard news, warnings that are heavy and painful to hold. John had to take all of it in, the sweetness and the bitterness together. Next, John heard about 2 witnesses. These were 2 men whom God would send out to speak his truth to the world for a set length of time. Great power rested on the 2 of them. Should anyone try to bring them harm, fire would come from their mouths. Whenever they chose, they could shut up the sky so no rain fell, and strike the earth with all kinds of trouble. As long as the work God had given them remained unfinished, no one on earth could lay a hand on them. But the day came when their work was complete. A beast rose up out of the pit and overpowered them, taking their lives. Their bodies lay out in the open street of the great city, and the whole world stared and celebrated. People threw parties and sent gifts to one another, delighted that the 2 troublesome witnesses had finally been silenced. For 3.5 days those bodies lay there in the street, and then the breath of life from God flowed back into them. Up onto their feet they rose. Terror gripped everyone who was watching. A loud voice called down from heaven, "Come up here!" And the 2 witnesses rose into the sky in a cloud, while their enemies looked on, frozen in shock. God's truth could be quieted for a moment, but it could never be put to rest for good. A great and wonderful sign now appeared in the sky. A woman stood there, glowing with light. The sun was wrapped around her like clothing. The moon rested beneath her feet, and a crown of 12 stars circled her head. She was about to give birth, and the pains of it made her cry out. Then a second sign appeared, and this one was terrifying. A huge red dragon filled the sky with 7 heads and 10 horns, and a crown upon each of its 7 heads. Its tail was so massive that it swept 1/3 of the stars right out of the heavens and hurled them down to the earth. Coiling itself in front of the woman, the dragon waited and watched. The instant her child was born, the dragon moved to strike. But the baby was snatched away to safety, caught up to God and his throne. As for the woman, she fled into the wilderness, to a place God had already prepared to keep her safe. And then it happened. War. War broke out in heaven itself. There was a mighty warrior angel named Michael, and together with his angels he went into battle against the dragon and the dragon's angels. Across the heavens, the 2 armies clashed. In the end, the dragon could not win. He simply was not strong enough. Down he was thrown. And here, John was told exactly who this dragon truly was. He was the ancient serpent. He was the devil. He was Satan, the one who had been deceiving the whole world from the very beginning of time. Hurled down to the earth he went, and his angels along with him. A loud voice rang through heaven, full of celebration, because the great accuser had at last been cast down. Yet that same voice carried a warning for the earth below. "The devil has come down to you," it said, "and he is burning with fury, because he knows that his time is now very short." That is the truth sitting right at the heart of this whole book. The dragon is powerful, and he is angry. But deep down, he knows something the rest of the world does not. He knows that he has already lost. He knows the clock is quietly running out on him. And a cornered, defeated enemy is the most dangerous kind of all. Knowing his time was short, the dragon turned to make war on everyone who belonged to God. To carry it out, he called up help from the sea. Standing on the shore, John watched as a beast came rising up out of the sea. 7 heads and 10 horns crowned it, just like the dragon. It was monstrous to behold, part leopard, part bear, part lion, all stitched together into one nightmare. And the dragon handed this beast his own power, his own throne, and great authority to go with it. All across the world, people were amazed by the beast. They followed after it. Before long, they were bowing down to worship it, and worshiping the dragon behind it as well, asking one another, "Who is like the beast? Who could ever stand and fight against it?" Opening its mouth, the beast spoke proud and insulting words against God. It was even allowed to make war against God's people and to rule over every tribe and nation for a set season of time. Then a second beast came into view, and this one rose up out of the earth. 2 horns like a lamb sat upon its head, so that it looked gentle and harmless at first. But the moment it opened its mouth, out came the voice of the dragon. It was a deceiver through and through. Its one job was to make everyone worship the first beast. To pull this off, it performed amazing tricks that fooled the watching crowds, even calling fire down from the sky right in front of them so that they would believe. This second beast then did something that has unsettled readers for 2,000 years. It forced everyone, the rich and the poor, the powerful and the lowly, the free and the bound, to receive a mark. The mark went onto the right hand or onto the forehead. Without it, no one was permitted to buy or sell a single thing. No food could be purchased. No goods could be traded. A person was locked out of life itself unless they accepted the mark and showed their loyalty to the beast. Tied to that mark was a number, the number of the beast. Anyone with wisdom, John wrote, should be able to work it out. The number is 666. Here was the great test laid bare. Take the mark, bow to the beast, and an easy, comfortable life was yours. Refuse it, stay loyal to God, and you stood to lose everything. Your money, your food, perhaps even your life. The pressure would be crushing. The whole world would be leaning hard in a single direction. But God was watching closely to see who would hold firm. And in the very next thing John saw, he was reminded that those who refused the mark would never be forgotten. After the darkness of the 2 beasts, John was shown a bright and hopeful sight. The Lamb stood before him again, Jesus, this time upon a mountain called Zion. Gathered around him was a great company of his people, the faithful ones, the pure ones, the ones who had refused to bow before the beast. a brand new song rose from their lips. A song that only they were able to learn, because only they had walked through what they had walked through. Soon John noticed angels flying high across the middle of the sky. The first of them carried a message for the entire earth, for every nation and every people. In a loud voice he proclaimed, "Fear God and give him glory. The hour of his judgment has arrived. Worship the one who made the heavens and the earth and the sea." A second angel came right behind him, announcing something John would not fully understand until later. Fallen is Babylon the Great, the proud city that had led the world far astray. Then a third angel gave the most solemn warning of all. Anyone who worshipped the beast and received its mark, he declared, would have to stand and face the full weight of God's anger. The choice a person made about that mark, the angel made plain, was a choice that carried weight for all eternity. A voice from heaven then spoke a blessing over those who left this world still trusting in God. "Blessed are those who pass on while resting in the Lord," it said. "They will lay down their heavy burdens, and everything good they have done will go right along with them." After this, the scene shifted into a picture of harvest. John saw one who looked like the Son of Man seated on a white cloud, a golden crown upon his head, and a sharp sickle in his hand, the curved blade farmers use for cutting grain. An angel cried out, "Swing your sickle! The harvest of the earth is fully ripe." The one on the cloud swung the sickle across the earth, and the harvest was gathered in. It was a picture of the very end. The world had grown like a field through a long, full season. Now the time had come to bring it all in. The good crop carefully gathered and kept, the rotten fruit cast aside. The long wait was nearly finished, and the last and greatest of the disasters was about to be poured out upon the earth. Another sign appeared in heaven, great and awe-filling. 7 angels, each one carrying one of the 7 final troubles. With these, God's anger against all the evil of the world would at last be brought to completion. Nothing more would follow them. This was the end of the warnings. Into the hand of each angel was placed a golden bowl, filled right up to the brim with the wrath of God. From the temple of heaven, a great voice gave the command, "Go now, pour out the bowls upon the earth." The first angel emptied his bowl over the land, and a great trouble fell upon all the people who carried the mark of the beast. Emptying his bowl into the sea, the second angel turned the whole sea dark and lifeless, and the creatures living in it could no longer survive there. The third angel poured his bowl over the rivers and the springs, and they too were spoiled, so that the fresh water everywhere turned bad. Tipping his bowl toward the sun, the fourth angel gave it power to grow fierce and scorching, so that the heat pressed down hard on the earth. Yet even then the people would not soften their hearts. Instead of turning to God, they only cursed his name. The fifth angel emptied his bowl right over the throne of the beast itself, and its whole kingdom was plunged into thick darkness. The light went out across the beast's empire, and still the people would not change their ways. When the sixth angel poured out his bowl onto the great river, its waters dried up, opening a path for the kings of the earth to bring their armies through. Together they gathered at a place with a famous name, Armageddon, to make their final stand. At last the seventh angel emptied his bowl into the air. From the throne came a mighty voice, speaking just 3 words, "It is done." Flashes of lightning split the sky. Thunder crashed, and the ground shook with the greatest earthquake the world had ever felt. So violent that the great city broke into 3 pieces. Mountains vanished away, and islands slipped beneath the waves. Giant hailstones, each as heavy as a boulder, came fallen from above. The bowls were empty now. God's long patience had finally run all the way out. And so the spotlight turned to that great and wicked city, the one the angel had called Babylon, to reveal exactly how it would fall. One of the angels came to John and said, "Come with me. I will show you the judgment of the great city, the one that sits over many peoples and pulls the whole world into corruption." In his spirit, John was carried out into a wilderness. There he saw a woman, though she was nothing like the glowing woman from before. This one rode upon the scarlet beast, the one covered with insulting names and crowned with 7 heads and 10 horns. Purple and scarlet robes draped her shoulders, and she dripped with gold and jewels and pearls. A golden cup rested in her hand, but the cup was filled with filth and with the evil of all her sins. Across her forehead a name was written, Babylon the Great, the mother of all the world's corruption. This woman, this city, stood for the whole proud, glittering, godless way of the world. A world in love with money, with luxury, with pleasure above all else. A world that trampled the weak to feed its own endless hunger. And John saw that she was drunk on the lives of God's faithful people, whom she had hunted down and taken from the earth. Her hour, though, had come. Down from heaven came another angel, shining with great glory, and he cried out, "Fallen, fallen is Babylon the Great." In a single hour, John was told all her riches would be swept clean away, and the world wept over her. The kings who had partnered with her stood and mourned as they watched the smoke of her burning climb into the sky. The merchants who had grown rich selling her gold, her fine cloth, her spices, and even the lives of human beings wailed aloud, because in one short hour all their wealth had slipped through their fingers. Far off, the sea captains and sailors looked on as the great city burned, throwing dust on their heads and crying, "Was there ever a city as great as this one?" But up in heaven, the sound could not have been more different. No weeping rose there. Instead, a roar of joy went up, like the noise of a huge crowd shouting out, "Hallelujah!" The world that had once seemed unstoppable, the whole system that crushed the good and rewarded the wicked, had come crashing down at last. Babylon had fallen, and now the king himself was ready to ride. Heaven itself was thrown open before John's eyes, not just a single door this time. The whole sky split wide, and out of it came a rider on a white horse. This was the moment the entire book had been building toward. This was the return of the king. Faithful and True was the name he carried. His eyes blazed like fire. Upon his head sat not one crown, but many crowns, the crowns of all the world. Yet he carried another name as well, written across his robe and along his side for everyone to read: King of Kings and Lord of Lords. Following close behind him came the armies of heaven, mounted on white horses, dressed in clean and shining linen, pure and bright. They carried no weapons of their own, for their king had no need of help. From his mouth came a sharp sword, and with it he would strike down the nations. He had come to set the whole world right once and for all time. Gathering their forces together, the beast and the kings of the earth lined up to make war against the rider and his army. This was the final battle, the last desperate stand of evil against God. But it was hardly a battle at all. The beast was captured. The false prophet who had fooled the world with his miracles, that second beast, was captured right alongside it. And the two of them were thrown into a lake of fire that burned with sulfur. That was the end of the beast and all his lies. Everything they had built, the fear, the deception, the forced worship, collapsed in a single instant the moment the true king appeared. The rider on the white horse had finally come. The long, long fight was very nearly over, but one enemy still remained, the oldest one of them all, the dragon himself. Down from heaven came an angel, holding the key to the bottomless pit in one hand and a great chain in the other. Taking hold of the dragon, that ancient serpent, the devil, Satan, the angel bound him fast with the chain. Into the pit he threw him, locking it and sealing it shut overhead so that the devil could no longer go out and deceive the nations. For 1,000 years, the great deceiver lay chained away in the dark. Throughout that long age, John saw thrones, with the faithful people of God seated upon them. He saw the souls of those who had given their lives rather than bow to the beast or take its mark. They came to life once more, and they reigned alongside Christ for the whole 1,000 years. It was a long and peaceful age with the dragon locked away and the king upon his throne. But when the 1,000 years had run their course, the dragon was let out of his prison one final time. The instant he was free, he went straight back to the only thing he had ever known. Out he went to deceive the nations, gathering them for one last war. He pulled together an army as countless as the sand along the seashore, and they marched across the earth until they had surrounded the city of God's people. For a moment, it looked like a hopeless siege, but the battle never even got started. Fire came down out of heaven and consumed the entire army in a single moment. And then came the dragon's end. The devil, who had deceived the world from the very beginning, who had fought against God across every page of this book, was thrown into the lake of fire, the same place where the beast and the false prophet already were. There he would remain forever. The old serpent was finished. The enemy who had whispered his lies since the garden, who had hunted God's people across the whole long story of the world, was gone for good. Evil had run completely out of moves. The only thing left now was the final reckoning, the judgment of every soul that had ever lived. Then John saw it, a great white throne, and someone seated upon it whose presence was so pure and overwhelming that the earth and the sky themselves fled away from before him. There was nowhere left to hide. Not a single corner of all creation remained to run to. Gathered before the throne stood the people who had passed from this world, every one of them, great and small, kings and beggars, the famous and the long forgotten, every person who had ever lived. The sea gave up those it had taken. The grave gave up everyone it had been holding. No one was missing. Not a single soul was overlooked. Then books were opened. Inside them was written the record of everything. Every deed, every word, every quiet hidden thing that people had been sure no one would ever uncover. And each one was judged by what stood written in those pages, by the things they had done. But there was one more book, the most important of them all. It was called the Book of Life. Written inside it were the names of everyone who belonged to God, everyone who had placed their trust in the Lamb. This was the book that truly counted. The question was never how famous a person had been, nor how wealthy, nor how clever. There was only one question that mattered in the end. Was your name written in the Book of Life? Anyone whose name could not be found in that book was sent into the lake of fire, the same place the dragon and the beast had gone. And John was told that this, the lake of fire, was the second death. It was the final and complete end of all evil, all rebellion, all darkness. This was the most serious moment in the whole story. Every life laid open, every soul accounted for, nothing hidden away, nothing forgotten, nothing left unfinished. But for those whose names were written in the book of life, this was not the end at all. It was the doorway into something brand new, something so beautiful that it makes everything before it look like a passing shadow. The old world, the one full of war and tears and dragons and beasts, was gone. Even the sea, which all through the book had been the place that monsters rose out of, was no more. Everything had been made new. Coming down out of heaven from God, John saw a city, the holy city, the New Jerusalem, shining and beautiful, dressed like a bride on her wedding day. From the throne, a loud voice rang out, speaking perhaps the most comforting words in the entire Bible. Look, God's home is now among His people. He will live right here with them. They will be His people, and He Himself will be their God. With His own hand, He will wipe every tear from their eyes. No more death will there be. No more sadness, no more crying, no more pain, for the old things, every last one of them, have passed away forever. The one on the throne then said, "Look, I am making everything new." After this, an angel showed John the city up close, and it was beyond anything words could hold. The whole place glowed with the glory of God, shining like a precious jewel, clear as crystal. A great high wall surrounded it, set with 12 gates, and every single gate was one enormous pearl. Pure gold made up the streets, gold so pure that it was clear like glass. The walls themselves were built of every kind of precious stone, sparkling in every color imaginable. Something was missing, though, and John noticed it right away. Nowhere in the city was there a temple, no special building set apart for going to meet God. The reason was simple. God Himself was already there, everywhere, filling the whole city through and through. Neither sun nor moon was needed either, because the glory of God lit up everything, and the Lamb was its lamp. Never again would there be any night. The gates would never need to close, for there was nothing left in all the world to be afraid of. Straight through the middle of the city flowed a river, the river of the water of life, clear as crystal, pouring out from the throne of God. Along its banks grew the tree of life, the very same tree that had stood in the garden at the beginning of the world. The whole story had come full circle. What was lost at the very start had been handed back, this time forever. And the very last promise was this: God's people would look upon His face. They would live with Him and reign at His side forever and ever and ever. That is how the strangest book in the Bible comes to a close, not with fire, not with a beast, not with darkness, but with a city of light, a river of life, and every last tear finally wiped away. We started with one lonely man on a rock in the middle of the sea, and we ended in a city of pure gold, shining with the light of God Himself. Along the way, we saw some frightening things. We watched the seals break open and the 4 riders charge out. We heard the 7 trumpets sound. We saw the dragon, the beasts, and the mark forced onto every hand. We watched a proud and wicked city burn to the ground in a single hour. But here is the thing I want you to remember. This was never really a book about fear. Yes, it is dark in places. Yes, it is strange. But under all of it, there is one simple message. Evil does not win.